Hey everybody, welcome to the Coding Zoo. My name is Shane and this is the Coding Zoo Java playlist. I hope you're having a great week. In this lesson, we are going to learn about arrays. So in previous lessons, we learned about primitive variables. We learned a little bit about objects. We're going to touch on objects more in the future. We've learned about different data structures and how to set variables and all that good stuff. In this lesson, we're going to go over arrays and how you would store data in an array. So if that interests you, hey, stick around. We're going to jump right in. All right, so hey, on my desktop, I have this class. It's called Arrays Example. I'm going to go ahead and give it a main method. So let's go ahead and create an array. Keep in mind, an array is a data structure that lets you store more than one of some other structure. For example, an object or primitive variables. I could have an array of integers. I can have an array of other objects or array of strings. Different types of objects can be stored in an array. Think of an array as like a line of people, right? So of that line of people, think of each one of those persons as being a particular data structure, a particular variable, like a string or an object. So let's say you're at the movies and there's a line going into the movies and everybody's single in a single line. Well, think of each one of those persons as a cell within the data structure array. You're putting items in a line, kind of like lining up dominoes. So when you tip them, they fall over. You're inserting primitive data structures or objects in a row, basically, in a line. Okay, so not a good example, but hopefully you get that. So let's go ahead and create an array. So I'm going to create a string array. I'm going to create an array that contains strings. And again, you can put any type of data structure in an array. You could have an array of integers or array of strings or other kind of objects. So I'm going to create a string array. So you type in string. Now here's where it actually signifies that it's array. You type in bracket and close bracket, open bracket and close bracket. And that's the symbol for having an array. Now I'm going to call this array students. And here I'm going to show you one way of creating a students array, and I'll show you another in a minute. But I'm going to put two strings in this array. So this student's data structure will contain two strings in the array. So I'm going to do Shane, go over and add Nick, that's my son, which my name is Shane. So I have a data structure that has two strings. Now before you saw that you couldn't create a string in previous lessons. That's creating a string. Student equals Shane. Well, if I want to pass around more than one student, I can create a string array versus just creating a string. Okay, let's go ahead and print out that array so we can see what it created. So I'm going to use this utility class called arrays. It has a bunch of static methods on it, and I am going to do a toString. It's going to do a deep toString. I want to do a toString. No need for deep. Okay, and I'm going to put the array students in there, and let's run it. All right. So if you look at the bottom here, I have the array printed out. It shows that I have the name Shane and Nick in that array. So I've successfully put two strings into a list, into a data structure rather, into a array. All right, so what if I wanted to change an entry in the array? Well, if I look at Shane, it's not capitalized. Let's say I wanted to capitalize it. So I'm going to do students, and an array you can access by the number of the cell, the number of the position of a particular item is in the array. But keep in mind, the numbers of the cells is zero based, not one based. So the first cell would not be one, it would be zero. So I'm going to do students 0 and I'm going to put Shane with a capital letter. Okay, and I'm going to take the printout from above, copy it there. Let's run it, save it. And there we go. You'll see that I printed out Shane Nick again, and then it ran the code that capitalized it and inserted it at index 0 and printed out Shane with the capital letter. So that's how you can actually change the data in a given cell in an array. You can actually use an index value. And keep in mind, it's 0 based. All right, so my array has 2 entries in it. What happens if I do this? Students, I'm going to put 2, and I'm going to put my daughter's name, Faith, and I'm going to cut and paste this so we can print it out again. What do you think is going to happen? Is it going to print out all 3? Let's see. There we go. Uh-oh. Array index out of bounds. Index 2 is out of bounds for the length of 2. Well, why is index 2 out of bounds? It has a length of 2. Well, again, it's 0 based. So the 2 entries in the array is 0 and 1. 2 would only fit in a array that has a length of 3. So how did this array get created with just a length of 2? Well, when I created it this way, I only put 2 entries, so that's what the array was created for that size. How could I create bigger arrays? Let's look into that. So I'm going to reuse that variable students, and I'm going to create a new array. So students equals new string. So I'm saying I want to create a new string array. Now, if I didn't already have the string and open bracket, close bracket right here, I would need to put it here. But since I already have it assigned as a string array students, I don't have to put it again. So I'm going students equals new string array. So that's one way. Another way of creating an array. Now it's missing something. It's missing a size. So now I'm going to specify what size I want my array to be. So I'm going to do it a size of 3. Okay. Let's go ahead. I'm going to add the students to the array. First, there's Shane. Next, there's Nick. And now I can go ahead and add the 3rd entry, Faith. All right, so let's print that out. Run it. And there we go. We still have this error. Now I left that in place. Let me go ahead and comment that out. Comment that out. Let's run it again. All right, there we go. So we have the array that has the Shane that, of course, is lowercase. We have where I changed it to uppercase. And here's where we created the new array where it says Shane, Nick, and Faith. Now this array size is the size of 3. So that's how you can specify the size of an array. But what if you wanted to dynamically grow? So you don't know how big the array is going to be. Well, array is probably not the best data structure for that. It does not automatically grow. You need to set it to whatever you need it to be up front. Okay. Now, you've seen how I would add entries into the array by using the index. You've seen how I've updated entries. How would I loop through this array, right? How would I, maybe I don't know how many entries are in the array, and I just want to print each one of them out, or I want to access each object that's in that array, each string that's in that array. How would I do that? Well, that's where the for loop comes in. Now, we're going to show you multiple ways of doing this in upcoming lessons. The original way was using a for loop. So if I go for, I'm going to do integer index equals 0 and index. So I want to do a for loop. So the first thing you do is you put what's your counter. You have a variable that you use for counting, and you start it out with 0. That's going to be index. So integer index equals 0. Now I want to stop. The next thing I put after this semicolon is I want to stop when, I want to keep going rather, as long as the index is less than students dot length. So there's a property on, it's a property, not a method, on students that tells you how large it is. So that number should be 3. So I'm going to go 0, 1, 2. That's how many times I'll loop. 0, 1, 2. Now I have to have another semicolon, and I'm going to tell the index to increase itself each loop. So you have the definition of the variable. You tell it when to stop, or how long to keep running rather, as long as it's less than student's length. So we'll go 0, 1, 2, and then student's length is 3. So 0, 1, and 2 is less than 3. When it gets to 3, it'll stop. It won't keep going, which is good because the index for student 3 doesn't exist because it's 0 base, 0, 1, 2. All right, let's go ahead and print it out. I'm going to go ahead and put a little extra text here to show you how that index is updating. Processing student. I'm going to do let's do a pound sign, number sign, processing student plus, well, let's create a student count. I'm going to do integer student count equals, since index is 0 based, I'm going to do index plus 1. So when it's on the first student, the index will be 0. So I'm going to say that the student count is 1 for the first one. Okay, student count, and I'm going to do plus. Okay, and I'm going to do students, and I'm going to type in the index, a variable as the index, and that should work. Let's see how that goes. All right, let's run it. All right, so I have processing student 1, use the variable index to print out Shane, processing 2, and it printed out Nick, and then processing 3, and it printed out Faith. So that is one example of how to use the for loop to loop through an index. All right, so hey, that's it for arrays. Anyway, I hope this was helpful. I hope you understand arrays. If you don't, feel free to leave me a question below. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you for watching this week's lesson. If you like this lesson, go ahead and click the like button below, and be sure to click the subscribe button for upcoming lessons. Click that bell so you'll get alerts. Thanks for joining us, and I hope you have a great week. Bye.